Half-brothers threatened to sue me over $16K. It costs them $158K and possibly their parents' marriage. When I, 25F, was 3, my grandparents passed away. They set up a savings account in my name. The account was meant to be accessed by me when I was 21. At that point it contained just over $300K. My grandparents left me a letter saying they would like me to share the money fairly with any other Smith-Jones children, meaning my full siblings. Dad's a Smith, Mom's a Jones. By fairly, they meant that they wanted me to assess the situation and judge for myself what was fair. I never had full siblings, but I have 2 half-brothers, Mac and Joe Smith, who are Dad and stepmom's kids. Due to the specific wording my grandparents used, I legally never had to give Mac or Joe any money. However, I see Mac and Joe as my brothers, and as the money came from our grandparents, I felt that the fairest thing would be to assign each of us $100K. So we all got an equal-sized lump sum, and I figured that when Mac, the youngest, turned 21 and took his $100K, we could split any remaining money. When I turned 21, Dad suggested I buy a house with my $100K. I found a place I loved, but it was $130K and I couldn't get a mortgage. So Dad said I should borrow $30K from the account. I did, figuring I could pay it back before my brothers turned 21. And I have been repaying it. The account should be at $208K right now. But due to me withdrawing and then repaying that money, it's at $195K. So I still owe $13K. Joe turned 21 recently, and as I was giving him his $100K, Joe noticed that there was less in the account than there should be. I explained and said I was going to put it all back before Mac, now 19, turns 21. Joe told Mac and both boys said I stole from them and owed them the full $13K back plus $3,000 of interest that they felt they would have gotten. And they wanted it all paid by this summer, which gave me less than 6 months to bring the account up to $211K. I said I'd do it, but over 2 years as planned. The boys then wrote up a contract to that effect. I went to sign it, until I saw that it said 6 months to pay it all back. I wouldn't sign as we agreed on 2 years. They said I should figure it out as they were entitled to that money and would be seeking legal advice. Later that day I got an email, clearly written by them, saying that they intend to sue me for the $16K, plus whatever is currently in the account, and additional damages and emotional distress on top of that. At this point in time, I'd given Joe about $50K of his $100K, because he wanted it in installments. I responded that legally, they were never entitled to any of it, and given their attitudes, I'd say they've already received an amount I deem fair, so that $50K was all they were getting. I then got a barrage of texts, calls, and emails yelling at me for going back on our deal. I blocked them. They then took to social media, saying that I was trying to screw them out of their inheritance and rallying our extended family into harassing me over this. And it mostly worked as a lot of people messaged me. However, I got a message from this guy called Chris Smith. Chris said he was 27 and claimed to be my half-brother. I had never met him before, but he sent me photos of him as a kid with our dad, grandparents, and me. He showed me that he also had an account with $150K in it, and a scan of a letter from our grandparents, saying this money was meant to be shared fairly among Dad's illegitimate children. Chris also told me we have another half-sibling, who is 18. He'd been looking for me for a while, but only found me when Dad shared Joe's post which had me tagged. We checked with a solicitor to make sure, and as the boys are legitimate, they aren't entitled to anything in Chris' illegitimate kid fund, and as they are my half-siblings, they aren't entitled to anything in my Smith-Jones kids fund, either. I sent the boys a letter formally telling them to back off, stop posting about me online, and enjoy the 50K because it's all they were getting. The day they received the letter, Chris got a PM from Dad, asking if the boys can have some of Chris' fund. Chris also said no, and told Dad we'd met.
I told Mac and Joe about Chris and our other half-sibling,
with Chris' permission. So it looks like my grandparents, knowing about Chris before they passed,
set up 2 funds.
One for the kids Dad had with my mother, who was still his wife when they passed, and one for children born out of Dad's affairs, presumably to make sure no one tried to screw anyone else over out of hurt feelings. I'm getting a lot of shit, but holding firm on my decision. The boys have realized that I won't back down on this, and it sounds like I've caused a schism at their house, as Joe has all the money and no intention of sharing, so Mac is now feeling twice as screwed. Plus stepmom apparently did not know about the other half-siblings, or that my half-sister was born after she and Dad got married, and she's made Dad move into a hotel. It sounds like Dad is looking for a long-term living arrangement outside of the family home, because it looks like she is not letting him move back in. Dad is begging me to reconsider, but honestly I'm done with all of them except Chris and my sister. Your grandparents were pretty forward-thinking. The thing about inheritances is that no one is entitled to anything not specifically listed in the will. If the will states that the money goes to you at your discretion, then they're shit out of luck, and anything they did get was of your own goodwill. Getting greedy and flying too close to the sun is a tale as old as time. Looks like they melted their wings and are out of the money you were willing to give them that they weren't even entitled to in the first place. It serves them right. You chose to give them £100,000 each out of your inheritance. That's not the same as them being entitled to 1/3 of the fund. You tried to do right by them, and they tried to screw you over money you volunteered. Were the grandparents in question were your maternal grandparents, Jones? Or was it that your father's parents didn't approve of your stepmother, your father remarrying? You left out a lot of information when you posted in AITA. Sounds to me like they did this to themselves. Invest all your money wisely, as it is most certainly yours. I don't care if this is a revenge story or not, but it was a hell of a ride. Your grandparents, bless them, were golden-hearted. Your dad may be a puss. Frankly, you're doing the right thing simply because it's your decision. Don't let anyone get in your head. And worse, don't let it make you lose your peace of mind. Seems totally fair. You were within your right to use the extra $30K, and promising it back sounds fine. When you're receiving $100K, you shouldn't moan about the interest emo.
Not unless you can say you outright earned that money anyways.
Sad when people get so greedy over inheritance. You should have kept the money for yourself. If you felt they should share some of the money, you should have gifted it to them with no explanation as to where it came from. They were never entitled to the money to begin with. As Joe has all the money and no intention of sharing, so Mac is now feeling twice as screwed. LMAO. That's the best part, emo. For talking so much about sharing fairly and equally. They sure can't do it themselves. Just to be clear, is my understanding that it didn't cost them $158,000, but just kept them from receiving $158,000, correct? I'm asking because if it cost them that much money, i.e. attorney fees, to pursue getting what they thought was their share, but lost, that would make this even sweeter.
Don't get me wrong.
This is a good story, but it is their revenge? Or pro-revenge? Keeping the money is vengeful, but I don't see a lot of planning here. Ungrateful people deserve nothing. Your brothers aren't that bright. Trying to sue you for money that's A, only in your name, and B, even if their names were on it 2 weeks before the age they're entitled to the money. Offering $200K was pretty generous of you. People can be so greedy. Even people who are supposed to love and look out for you. I learned that when my grandma died, there were only 2 of her kids. My dad and one of my aunts, who actually gave a shit about her, who showed up and spent time, helped her around the house. Why no? Family stuff. As she got on, she stressed about where her money should go and how to distribute it fairly. My father and aunt were clear they didn't care what she did with it, and they would help carry out her wishes, whatever they were.
All my other family would come over basically only to beg and demand money from her after her death.
Like vultures, my grandma essentially decided that my father and aunt should split the money in her things, and do whatever seemed most fair to them. With the exception of a few personal items, they kept nearly everything. Of course, this caused the vultures to lash out and then eventually disown my whole family. Even the kids like me who had no choice in the matter, lol. They saw the basic love and compassion that caused her to feel safe leaving them the money, despite never asking for it, as just another sneaky con, seemingly never considering the fact that someone could actually be concerned for their family and want nothing in return. Makes me sick even still. Anyway, rant lol. My father put a provision in his will such that any party who initiated legal action against any other beneficiary of his estate would automatically forfeit their allocation, which would be immediately redistributed to the remaining named parties. I don't know how well that would hold up in court. Thankfully, we never had to test it, but I thought it was a smart move. Perfectly handled on your part. Sorry you are dealing with a mess though. I hope you can calm your mind with the reassurances here that as per the wording of the contracts, in terms of your family situation, you are in the right. Best of luck. Wow, you were being way too kind at your dad's insisting, and I'm glad you didn't let that mess of a man get any say in what happens with that money. This feels like a weird way to set out a will by giving it to you and telling you to split it, instead of just writing how to split it directly in the will. They didn't even need to know how many children there were. They can just word it: split 2/3 of the money evenly among children of Smith Jones and 1/3 evenly among children of only one of those parents. Now the story is removed, but I want to hear the story. Sad face.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.